Is a Western New York Bigfoot Investigation Group podcast. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. It contains no wisdom, very few facts, or life changing epiphanies, and is only the opinions, hypotheses, and guesses of the podcast host. If anything of value is learned, it is by mere chance alone. Don't blame me if you suddenly think about something or anything in a way you hadn't thought about it before. All right. Welcome, Satchlings and Squatchers, to the Bigfoot Atheist Inquiry Sasquatch Random Live. You know me, I'm Joe, aka Satch Squatch. How's everybody doing? Yeah, I know this is real soon after the last one, but that's only because I've had time on my hands, and so I thought, hey, let's do something. And here I am. Here we are. Here you is. Uh, so hey, what's up? Grasshopper. How's it going, Graz? Good to see you. And there she is, Miss Cindy Finn. Hello, Cindy. Good to see you. Oh, hey, there he is, the old grouch himself, Jay Fritz, ready to be a husband. He's a groom in waiting. All right, Jay. Welcome, my brother. I'm glad to see you, man. Glad to see you. Um, Who else? Ah, there she is, my lovely Jen. Hello, Jen. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. We got Mr. Joe Jiden. Thank you, Mr. Joe Jiden. Good to see you, my man. I'm glad you're here too. And we have the Salt Man himself, Mr. John Ayers. All right, John. Thanks for coming, man. Good to see you. And we have hello from South Carolina. Greetings. That's right. Mr. Danny Staten. Hey, Danny, what you doing, man? I'm glad you're here. Sharon, there she is. Love you, Sharon. She's popping in. Thank you for being here. And let's see. Well, I had a flash going on there. Hey, there he is, finding the trackway. What's up? How's it doing, Nolan? Trackway. Good to see you, man. Angel Nolan. Hello, Angel. Good to see you, dear. Glad you're here. Mike S., my man. How you doing, Mike? Good to see you, man. I'm glad you're here for this Sasquatch Random Live, man. Who else? I love this screen flash because then it makes me think that I missed somebody all of a sudden. All right, well, we got that going on. And so we're going to cover some stuff today. I was just looking around again, as I do sometimes, and I found an interesting article. It's from last year, but I thought it was cool. And it's about, of course, New York and about Bigfoot in New York. And so I reached out to a good friend of mine and asked him if he could make a guest appearance. And he's busy, but you know what? He did the time. He took the time. And so I'm going to bring him on before we get into this. And so get ready. It was big, hairy, and smelly. Who you going to call? Steve Cole, Squatch Detective. And there he is. How you doing, my brother?
What up? I don't know how my mic is coming in tonight. I've been trying to do a little adjustment on it, but I am doing well. Almost
It
through.
it sounds
Almost through.
okay to me.
All right, almost through the work week. Thank goodness.
Yeah, yeah. I wish, man. Soon, I'm going to be getting back to work, man.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into that a little bit later on. But yeah. So Steve, I was looking through, and
And
I
Joe, if
found.
I may say, that is
Yes,
quite an auspicious hat you have there.
I know. You know what? I started wearing it again because Mr. Lee 3PO made a comment in chat about this hat one night about how much he liked it. And he originally thought it was leather. I said, no, no, no. It's not leather. It's just felt. But he seemed to really like it. And I thought, you know what? Just in case he pops in,
I,
Mr.
I mean, I,
Lee.
I,
There
I
it
got
is.
on the show and I thought it was Amish News Hour.
Yeah, somebody in the chat said something about Joe's going Amish, and Leon said something about the Amish thing. And it's like, well, they are up here in New York. So, especially in this western part of the state.
Well, there's a whole gaggle in Whitehall, New York, as well.
Oh, yeah. And that has a little bit to do with what we're talking about tonight, too. We're going to go over. And so I found this article, man, and it was pretty cool. And so we're going to get right into it. Let me see here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share this on screen and read it. And then there's a little video that we can watch. I'm not sure if I can enlarge it. So where is it? There it is right there. Okay, share.
Sounds like a personal problem.
So you might know this, Steve, because you're in this article, and you're in the video that goes along with it. So as you see the title, this was from 2022, last year. Is Bigfoot real? Sasquatch sightings rumored in upstate New York. And of course, you have your obligatory frame of Patty that the articles always use to
Good old
represent
352.
Sasquatch. And and so we get into the article, and it's by Jeff Herbert from Syracuse. Jeff Herbert, and it says, "Is Bigfoot real and alive in upstate New York?" Mayville, New York resident Peter Weimer told WGRZ that he's heard from 45 eyewitnesses who claim to have seen the Sasquatch in the area around Chautauqua Lake, located 60 miles south of Buffalo. And yes, south of Buffalo. Hey, we've been there, Chautauqua, and yeah. So there's a lot that come out there, and I know somebody who's been researching out in that area, Ryan Reading, or is pronounce it Redding. I never knew which. He's been out there for quite a while, but it goes on to say there's 100 or more witnesses in Chautauqua County that aren't talking to me, Weimer told the TV station. According to WGRZ, Chautauqua County is packed with dense forests and deep gorges where an animal could live but rarely be seen, like the black bear. Weimer, who sponsors the annual Chautauqua Lake Bigfoot Expo event for believers and fans, says footprints seen in nearby Asheville, New York, are further evidence that the Sasquatch is out there. Yeah, I'm glad I read this article because now I'm like, okay, there's some areas here I got to take a look at. This is Whitehall, okay? Located in Washington County, north of Albany, has also had a large number of Sasquatch sightings that led to it being dubbed the Bigfoot capital of the East Coast. In 1976, multiple eyewitnesses, including local police and New York State troopers, said they saw a man-like beast standing over 7 to 8 feet tall and covered with hair, similar to the famous 1967 images captured by Roger Patterson in California. A blurry photo from a Whitehall trail cam in 2010 is among hundreds of reported Bigfoot sightings across the state. Now, I'm not sure about that, if I've ever seen that trail cam photo. I was going to look that up. Whitehall has its own Bigfoot event, the Sasquatch Calling Festival, with a competition for best Bigfoot calls to attract the elusive animal. But Bigfoot has been reportedly sighted in many other places, including in Washington state in 2020, keeping hope alive for enthusiasts across the United States. So, is Sasquatch real? Experts call it a cryptid, an animal that cryptozoologists believe may exist in the wild but may not be widely accepted in the scientific community. Other cryptids, Other cryptids include the Yeti, the Chupacabra, and the Loch Ness Monster. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, a professor of anatomy and anthropology at Idaho State University, told WGRZ that data suggests Bigfoots, or big feet, live in habitats similar to the black bear. And not finding physical evidence such as bones doesn't mean a Sasquatch is any less real than other wildlife. To find a dead bear in the wild is unheard of. The same thing with a coyote or a fox, even, because the environment has its own disposal system, Sasquatch researcher Steve Coles told WGRZ. And while we're at it here, we're going to. Wait, that's not what I wanted to do. That's not what I wanted to do. Go back. Go back. Go back. Come on, why is it not? Damn it. All right, let's try this again, folks. Sorry. I think what I got to do is I got to start it first. There we go. And then do that. There we go. Okay. Why is the sound gone? Can you guys hear me?
Because you got the mute button on the go down. See the mute button on your YouTube screen?
No.
All the way down lower left. Lower left when you go to the bar. Next one over.
Chautauqua Lake Bigfoot Expo since
Let's start that over.
creatures in the wild attract more controversy than Bigfoot. The legendary primate has been an enigma for centuries and continues to fascinate. Mayville resident Peter Weimer has been sponsoring an annual Chautauqua Lake Bigfoot Expo since 2012. The outpouring of eyewitnesses since then has many believing that Sasquatch may be living in the area.
They are from all kinds of walks of life. If there's 45 eyewitnesses that have reached out to me, there's 100 or more in Chautauqua County that aren't talking to me.
The county is lush with dense forests and deep gorges that would offer such a large animal plenty of space to remain concealed. Their habitat requirements are very similar to the black bear, a common but seldom seen species in the area.
There has been published data that indicates that examination of the bioclimatic factors that establish a black bear's population seem to also run very parallel to those attributable to Bigfoot based upon its reported distribution.
Skeptics often point to the lack of physical evidence such as bones to discount these animals' existence, but that's not unusual with any animal.
To find a dead bear in the wild is unheard of. Same thing with a coyote or a fox even, because the environment has its own disposal system.
Footprints are confirmation of an animal's presence and are impossible to hoax. Many have been found in Chautauqua.
Footprints tell us a lot of things too. I mean, not only the presence of something, but obviously, like I mentioned earlier, something about its distribution, its movements across the landscape.
For those convinced of its existence, the proof is out there and always has been.
This mystery does go back centuries. If you think about it, not only do you have the Native American lore, but throughout history.
Whether they're humanoid or more animal, that is still to be figured out, but they're there.
Taking you to the outdoors, I'm Terry Belke.
Well, there you go, man. And look, just like Jen said in the chat, Uh, Freaking Gary was in there. Gary did not even tell me he was in that video, man. He kept popping up. He kept popping up, man. So yeah, so I found that pretty interesting. And Steve, I'm sure you, of course, now flooding back into your old man's memory, you went, "Oh yeah, I did that last year. That's right, I did that video." Um, so what do you think, man? Um, we're running around here, and you know, I'm thinking about these areas now. We know that Chautauqua, as the article said, a lot of sightings have come out of there. And sometimes you just hear things from word, by word of mouth, as you're going around, and you hear these whispers about, yeah, so and so ran into one over here. Um, Now, have you spent some time in Chautauqua looking around that area, or you're muted?
I am, aren't I?
Yeah,
I also tried to adjust my mic a little bit in case it's coming across hot. I don't know why it's coming across hot on the airwaves, but because it's certainly not coming hot in here. So, have I? There is a property I've spent some time on over the last several years. We actually did get a print out of there. I want to say in 2017, perhaps 2017.
mm-hmm.
And it's a very dense county, very similar to Whitehall proper, except they don't have the Adirondack State Park there. Um, but again, it borders Pennsylvania and Ohio. Ohio is right over the sketch. It borders Pennsylvania, but Pennsylvania, as the crow flies, to Ohio is only about 25 miles wide about there. So yeah, I mean it's a great habitat. Um, Definitely, uh, what more can I say?
Yeah.
It's your uh, just try a different mic. This is a brand for everything says try a different mic. This is the brand new mic, and strangely, it doesn't come across hot when I pre-record things.
Yeah, it's
So
actually sounding okay to me right now.
yeah,
So
it sounds fine for whatever reason. It's a setting
huh?
with eh, I mean, I can set it at this. I don't know if you can still hear me now,
Yeah.
um, but I'm not quite sure why it's coming across so hot.
Now it doesn't at all.
So I have no idea. It's not coming. It doesn't come across hot when I record it only through StreamYard and only to the people on the other end of the podcast.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't understand why that's doing that. So
Yeah. Um.
and I can adjust just a little bit right here.
There you go. Um. Yeah, and welcome, former everything and Lockbeard. Yeah, I've been out. I haven't been in Chautauqua extensively. Of course, we were out there this past year, I guess it was Chautauqua, the Bigfoot festival there. Um, that was where you had me get up and nervously relate my
You
encounter
did.
there.
You did it like a
Um,
champ.
yeah, and so I haven't been out there extensive, but I have been out there a little bit. Um, and yeah, I mean, what they say stated in the article, well, yeah, there's some pretty deep gorges, and I mean the landscape is it's conducive to being able to hide something pretty large. And so the other thing I wanted to say is like, and you just mentioned Allegheny. Um, so, and of course, we all know that's the area out in Allegheny, out that way is where I had my encounter. And and then of course you hear, and that's pretty mountainous too. Now, um, not so much on this side. There's bigger hills. It's more like foothills. Um, but there is some pretty good elevation there. So, do you think when it comes to like Sasquatch in New York, right? I'm not under the impression And I kind of mentioned this the other night in the show. I'm not under the impression that every single patch of state forest in New York is going to hold Bigfoot.
Absolutely not.
You know, and there's a lot of forest land in New York. A lot of people just don't realize how much forest land there is in New York. But even still, like I said, I'm not under the illusion that there's going to be Bigfoot in every single state forest in New York. But so when it comes to those areas, it seems like that most of the reports that we're going to get out of, although I have seen some up by Rochester, um, and that area, right? But it seems like most of it comes from areas that are fairly mountainous, like near Allegheny, um, the Adirondacks, and I'm not so familiar with the Catskills, but I know there's been some around that area. So, do you think that's the key? I mean, I think we've talked about this and surmised it back about they like mountainous areas. So, I mean, in your research, does that seem to jibe?
Yeah, but most of your sightings that occur are by water, and I think that's more of the key to actual, where they're going to be is around water. The fact that there are mountains around is just one speculation that maybe perhaps during the day they could, you know, hang out at the upper higher elevations because they're less occupied by diurnal creatures such as humans.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look at uh, Scott Harriot, who many years ago, back I believe in the late '90s, maybe even the early '90s, had a sighting and caught a video clip of one kind of laying under a log that was on top of a mountain during the daytime. Um, but a lot of our sightings are always by water, and it's generally, on the lower land.
Okay. Yeah, because I have noticed. I mean, there's some that I've seen at least a couple reports um, stating like they've seen something around the Genesee River. Um, and like other lakes even here in New York that aren't in mountainous areas. Um, there is usually plenty of woods or forested area in these areas where they're seeing them near these bodies of water. But it's not necessarily such like extreme mountainous territory. Um,
Right, right. Yeah.
oh,
The
Cindy Finn's got a question. I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you do. So, do mountains have natural springs in those areas? I know there's some
there's some, but
springs,
I'm not.
but
The interesting thing in especially the Whitehall proper, you have to the west of the Whitehall area, you have Lake George. You have to the northwest, you have Lake Champlain. And then you have to the east of it, you have Lake Bomazine. As far as I know, and there may be another lake or two to the east, but I'm not familiar with those. So you have all these streams that are tributaries to these bodies of water. So, are there some natural springs in some of the mountains? I would assume so,
yeah,
but
yeah,
but not anything for certain where somebody's tapped into it to actually get spring water, I suppose.
yeah, yeah. I mean, because there's even a couple of places that aren't too far from here. Um, I think there's one that I see going from here. If I go towards well, if I leave out of Naples going towards Canandaigua, along this one road that goes through a little town, and boy, getting old sucks because it's just totally
Well, you know, do it.
Woodville. Sorry, there's a little
Yeah.
town called Woodville. It's right on the south end of Canandaigua Lake. And as you drive down that road going towards Canandaigua, on the left side of you, there's this big like cliff for a good ways once you leave out of Woodville and start up the hill. There's a big cliff, and there's a spot in there where um, there's a natural spring coming out of it right along that road. It's coming right out of the rock, and of course there's a pipe there, and I know people stop and get spring water there. But then of course there's several places along that cliff during the season, and especially if we've gotten a lot of snow, the runoff, there's like just water pouring down, waterfalls all along this thing. Um, so yeah, I mean, I know there's a few other springs, but most of them are located right by a road.
Yeah.
Because that's, people get the access to it. I'm not expecting to see a Sasquatch or almost any other animal, like, unless it's a small one, like right there by the road getting water from that spring. Um, but yeah, they do seem to do. And is that where this? Because I've heard it, never paid much attention to it. Uh, there's something about something like water ape theory, or what's it called? Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
Well, if there is, I haven't paid much mind to it. The water ape theory.
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, something about them being semi-aquatic or something. I guess.
Yeah. I've heard something like that, but that's just wild. To me, it's pure speculation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I will say that I do think it's totally within the realm of possibility that they can swim. You know, I mean, if you take Jeff Harding's encounter, man, I mean, that's on an island. That thing had to have swam there, and and I've heard other encounters where people have seen them in the water, you know, that I believe, and they could have been swimming at that time too. Just recently, that one I was talking about the other night about the First Nations couple that saw one while they were fishing. Um, that one was in the water swimming. So I don't put it out of the possibility that they can swim. I don't know about being semi-aquatic, but um, yeah. But yeah, as far as New York goes, I mean, the only thing I can say about New York is, what can I say? I think I've seen one of these things, and one anyway. Um, Pretty sure that's what it is. Although, again, like I said, I can't go. I'm absolutely positive that was a Sasquatch. Well, it was about 7.5 foot tall, covered in dark hair, face only a mother could love. Deep. The whole thing I described it as. The pictures right there.
If it
I
quacks
mean,
if it quacks like a duck, it's most
yeah, I
likely a
don't know
duck.
what other box to put it in. So I can't say how like, oh, New York is overrun with Sasquatch. They're everywhere. Um, but
They're
I
not.
know that
They're,
Rasta can't be the only one in New York State.
right.
You've had your own uh, encounters,
Twice. Two.
So, I mean, is any of your research or investigation led to any possible, like, how many of these things do you think could be in New York at the present?
Well, Dr. Meldrum had put this theory out that maybe there was 150 Sasquatch across New York State, and I myself kind of recalculated that because that was based on some old bear data, and I got the up to date bear data, and that would put it more like around 250,
Yeah,
and that seems to be okay. But one thing that we have to remember is that a Sasquatch is not held by state borders.
right.
So when you have an area that, like the Whitehall region, which is borders Vermont, which has has a much higher population of black bear, meaning that it likely would have a higher population of Sasquatch, according to Dr. Meldrum.
Hmm.
So statewide, who knows? I mean, that I wouldn't know that because I'm not a statistician, nor am I an ecologist, or
Right.
to kind of put that together. What I can put together is that a lot of people over the years have seen something that's very similar.
Yeah.
It does certain things, it doesn't do other certain things, and it's very in line with primate behavior.
Yeah. 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 And that's the thing. People, they've asked me, and I'm like, why are you asking me? I don't know, man. I'm probably one of the. Well, I'm looking around and I'm like, dude, I know the least about Bigfoot out of anybody I know. Um, but they would ask me, well, how many do you think we got in this state? And I'm like, I have no idea, man. I've seen one, and I know people that I believe that have had multiple encounters, but so I know there's probably more than a few, but you know, and I was trying to figure it out, and I thought about, and this is just a coincidence. I had guessed one time. I'm like, well, from what I'm seeing in a pattern, I was looking at my map and I was like, I'd give it about, and taking into mind what you said about Meldrum, and his hypothesis or his theory about it. I thought somewhere around a couple hundred, maybe, and they travel around, right? So, like for example, pretty easy, wouldn't you say, for a Sasquatch to go between New York, especially in this area where I'm at, Southern Tier, Western New York? Wouldn't be a far cry for them to be crossing the border between here and Pennsylvania
Sure.
all the time,
Just so you know, I did adjust another setting on my board, so hopefully this resolves any issues I'm having with sound still. So, if
Yeah. Yeah. So I
yeah,
know they.
and Joe, if a lot of people don't know that, the alleged trail cam photos, the Jacobs photos, that was actually taken near the Kinzu Dam,
Uh-huh.
which is just over the border from New York.
Yeah. Where were we? Where when we went out there? What? There was that river there. Is that near where that was, or no? Because wasn't there like a dam
Oh,
or something?
there's a dam. Yeah, correct. There's a dam. The Kinzu Dam.
Yeah, that's where we were
Uh,
at too.
so there's a
Right.
lot
That
of water.
one.
Okay, for everything says it's better, and now I realize what my issue is that I have a couple of different outputs for my soundboard, and I
Okay.
was always going to one as the default. I'm going to the other one now, and now it's not a hot mic. So
Yeah.
that's probably the issue there. So problem solved.
Yeah. So, and that also brings me up to this question. It's like I've completely started all over again, man. I've completely started all over again. And one of the ways I'm going to be doing that, of course, is I will be going back out to where I've had that encounter and starting all over and combing the area. But it also brings up an interesting question. I mean, knowing that they can move, and now I don't know how far they travel, but I mean, I don't see that it's out of the realm of possibility that uh, that Rasta, could have been traveling through that area, heading
Oh, so
toward
you think Rasta may be from the Keystone State?
maybe, maybe I don't know, maybe not. Maybe there is, maybe he does, you know, maybe there's more than him. I would imagine if he's out there. Um, I have no way of knowing that, but maybe there is like him and his wife, or I say wife, but him and his mate, and who else living in that general area and just sticking, because right in that general area where I had that encounter, I mean, there's a lot. There's like three different state forests. I mean, it's pretty much almost actually one big one, because
Right,
but they have
right.
three separate names, but they're all connected. So there's a lot of area there for them to be in, but um, I don't know. That's why I got to start over. I got to completely start over. and go back out there. And I'm still going to still going out on the Finger Lakes Trail, man. And I'm going to be exploring all along that. I have to do it in a little different way than I thought I was going to do it, but I'm still going to go out there, man, and comb the state, man.
Well, it's always about, you got to do your book research too. You got to look at those sighting reports, find the ones that are aggressive, and the more aggressive behaviors are more territorial behaviors. So that's where likely they're going to be hanging out in that particular area.
Yeah.
So it's crucial to get up on your local area history, not only of Bigfoot sightings, but what kind of animals are indigenous to the area, what kind of food is there, what kind of plant life is there, all that fun stuff, water source. So there are quite a lot of logistics that I do when it comes to finding new areas.
Oh, absolutely, man. That is always good advice, definitely. Because, yeah, I mean, there's areas in this state where, again, mentioning black bears, there's areas in this state where you're less likely to come across a black bear, and then there's points, that could be just a bit down the road where you got a really good chance of running into a black bear. So, I mean, out in Allegheny, where I'm at, and I go camping. And it was was it a couple years ago, probably, I guess it was now, when Sally and I were camping by ourselves out there near the area where I ran into Rasta, but it's a little bit of ways away. But again, it's connected. We saw a black bear out there, and I'm always seeing tracks and bear poop out there in that area. I don't always see the bear, but I do see their tracks and the bear scat quite often. So that is one area. Like around here, there's not too many bears right around in this area.
Yep.
But you go a little bit down the road, man, and out in Allegheny, there's bears out there definitely. So
yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is like you go to the area that's had a lot of activity, and like I said, I've been up there a lot over the last 23 years. That's how long I've been going to this area.
Yeah.
And only 2 sightings out of all that time spent out there. Had some other activity, but the amazing thing is not one bear seen. Not one bear. I know they're there. They have been seen there, but just not around us. And that's another prime objective we use is if we are normal speaking, normal talking, and all that. What it does is it keeps the bad animals away, the animals we don't want, but it piques the curiosity of the Sasquatch up.
Yeah.
So they want to come check it out because primates are naturally curious. So, we never.
Yeah. And that seems to be the go-to thing for me, man. I mean, that I'm counting on if I'm wanting another encounter is not me finding them, not at all. But piquing some curiosity, man, to get it to check me out. I don't ever want to just stumble across one like that time, man, in August. I don't want that to ever happen.
It don't matter none. You stumble across them anyway.
I mean, I figure that's pretty rare because usually they're pretty good. I mean, I imagine, like I said, there's lots of animals out there that if they're standing stock still, you can look right at them and not see them. So I figure Sasquatch probably can do the same thing, and, I mean, so I lost my train of thought. But yeah, it's like, okay. I forgot where I was going with that.
I don't know what Bodie said. That's a bold statement, Steve. I don't know what's a bold statement, what he's referring to.
Yeah. Maybe. I remember what that was now. The curiosity. So for me, I'm counting on curiosity alone.
Not
Really.
necessarily. It's not necessarily a bold statement. Number one, primates are naturally curious. Have natural curiosity. Think about it. Something goes boom. The dogs go underneath the desks, and we're looking out the window to see what made the boom. That is a primate thing. And if you go back and look at all your, some of your Bigfoot encounters, they're the ones at the edge of the forest watching somebody putting up their laundry or watching the children play or watching a campfire from afar.
Yeah.
They are curious. Primates' minds, because they're so large, need entertainment. That's why we just can't go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We need to keep that mental stimuli going. What happens is, and it's another thing too, and it's a given. This is medically proven that if you do this too much, what ends up happening is you end up going senile. You begin getting dementia.
Yeah.
So our minds need that synaptic movement in our heads, thinking, keeping ourselves engaged in the gray matter moving to keep basically sane in their own sanity. And obviously when a Sasquatch hears something, they're not necessarily walking away from it. Don't forget, they're kind of an apex predator themselves. They're going to go investigate to see what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I'm counting on, man, really. I mean, I don't know if that's going to work for me or not. Who knows? I mean, I'm prepared that maybe that one encounter is all I'm ever going to have, for the rest of my life. But that doesn't mean I can't get other answers, even if I don't run across one again. I just have to go, as they say, go where the evidence takes you, and see if there's anything. I mean, obviously we're not going to figure out, exactly what they are, what genus they belong in, etc., unless we have some other kind of physical evidence, like some DNA, a body part, something like that. But yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, I guess, you can say, and I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I mean, we say researcher, investigator, blah, blah, blah. And, I'm really not either one of them. Well, I am. I'm a researcher because I always do research. So everybody is a researcher, really. Anytime you try to find out information, you're doing research. Investigator, um, I guess in a way you can say that I'm investigating the areas that I go to, but not in a way that like you're an investigator,
Well, look at it this way, Joe. It's a two-facet. Actually, it's a three-facet operation. When you're sitting at your desk and you're on the internet researching something, you're researching.
Yeah.
Whatever. And I know there's people that say, well, armchair researchers and stuff like that. Well, there's a place for them as well. When you're out in the field, I go up to the mountain, say this weekend, which I am planning to go. I start looking around. I'm doing research. I'm not investigating. When somebody calls me and says, I've had a Bigfoot sighting, can you come to my house and talk to me and look over the property and look for sign? That's investigating. That's investigation.
Right.
And that's the distinct differences between that. And that's where you may, but here's the cool thing. When you do an investigation and when you do research, you have the opportunity to collect evidence. And that's the commonality between those two.
Yeah, yeah. And, I mean, really, I am one of those people that have had an extraordinary experience. And some people react differently to it. Some people are like, I don't ever want that to happen again. They shut it out of their life entirely. And then there's those of us who have an extraordinary experience, and we go, I want to see that again.
And
Lockbeard
made
huh?
When you get done with that, Lockbeard made an off comment that I kind of agree with, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like one of those. I'm not out necessarily like I don't want to be the guy that, oh, look, Sasquatch, he proved to the world that Sasquatch
Yeah,
exists and all that. I'm actually more of a guy that's in it for myself. I
yeah.
gotta admit,
You're
and the
you're in
people
it for
that,
you're
you
in it
know,
for your own experiences.
yeah, and for the people that have decided to join me on my journey, I'm really just, and I'm wanting that next encounter, man. I'm wanting that next encounter, and hopefully, the next time I have one is, again, like I say, hopefully it won't be where I just stumble into them and have no time to react other than go, "Holy shit, that thing's standing right there."
Yeah.
But actually get some of it documented, and just like I said, for myself, man.
Well,
Um,
if you or I think that shy of pulling a body out of the forest, we're going to prove a Sasquatch exists.
yeah,
We're not.
no,
The only way we can do it is collect evidence, pass it off to a scientist, and that's their area of expertise. I've
yeah,
always made that comparison like an investigator. As an investigator, I don't convict somebody, I don't prove they're guilty. I build the case and I give it to a prosecuting attorney who in turn then proves that case.
yeah. I'm looking for the comment.
Oh,
Um,
Lockbeard.
yeah.
Yeah, the off comment was he was saying that we get dementia a lot of times because of not eating a
Oh, there you
uh,
go. Yeah,
yeah.
you get dementia from eating poisonous, not food all your eating poisonous, not food all your life, which for humans is 100% carnivorous. And yes, the science is extremely solid on that. He says.
I believe he's correct on that. Not necessarily 100% carnivorous.
Yeah,
If we stuck to fruit and vegetables and meat, we'll probably be okay. It's the complex carbs
yeah,
that the science is starting to lean towards. This stuff isn't really even that great for us. Processed sugars and stuff like that. I mean, you wouldn't look at me. Aside from my grandmother, who was extremely overweight on my mother's side,
yeah,
my family has no history of diabetes. Yet here I sit, a type 2 diabetic. For
yeah,
no apparent reason. Never overweight. Well, I was overweight, but not to any extreme.
yeah,
And so yeah,
yeah. Yeah, and I tend to agree with most of that. I mean, and just like Cindy just said, processed food is bad. Sure, it is. But the way and I will agree, I'm omnivorous, but I am mostly carnivorous. I love my meat, man, and that is something that has been evolutionary wise. Just that has been what we evolved into. Is
and,
I mean, if you look at like even our cousins, the Neanderthals, and the Homo sapiens at the same time of that period, they were hunting megafauna, and that's pretty much primarily what their diet was. Now they did find evidence of Neanderthals also eat other things when like nuts and things of that nature, and all
yeah,
natural.
and leafy stuff you have to
Yeah,
have, and fruits
yeah,
and berries and stuff like that, and
yeah.
vegetables,
So
because you need that roughage anyway. It's
yeah,
good for the digestive system.
yeah.
That's why
But,
dogs will even eat grass. It's not because they
oh
just
yeah,
want to eat.
yeah.
It's
My dog
because
does it all the
they
time.
need it to clean their systems
Yeah,
out.
yeah. My dog does it all the time.
Hopefully not over the bathroom floor either. But
Yeah. But he is, I fully agree. He is correct that primarily, I mean,
yeah,
back then, and we haven't. And the point I'm trying to make is our biology between us and those early Homo sapiens that lived with along the same time as Neanderthal, our biology hasn't changed that much, like as what we're meant to eat. The
right.
reason I say that is because our teeth are pretty much the same. So, yes, primarily our diet back then was meat because there was a lot of it available, the megafauna and stuff while they were here. But they did, like you said, from occasionally they would eat other things, um, such as plant foods or nuts or
And and
whatever natural fruits that were
and
available.
Bear and
Like
Bear
we
Grylls
not
Bear
nature.
Grylls was a vegan, and he recently went back to eating meat.
Yeah.
And he says he's never felt better in his life. He goes, my God, my quality of my life has increased since I've eaten meat. He goes, I don't understand why I did that. He was always struggling to maintain his body weight. And now he's like, I feel like a new man.
Yeah. Yeah, Molly, she's turned vegetarian. She will eat meat occasionally.
And I get it. I get the people who want to save the animals, and that, I think that, and Lockberg, I tend to agree with you there too, that, we can live without, any plant life at all too, but
Sure, we could,
yeah,
but
we
why
could.
would we? Especially if some of the things I eat that aren't meat actually are good for me. They have certain vitamins and minerals in them. I mean, if it's not hurting me,
Yep.
I'm going to eat it.
And
Because
mind you, Joe, I do come from a little bit of a medical background. I was a paramedic for 8 years. So I did a lot of, studying on how the body works and pharmacology and all that physiology and all that fun stuff. And even the more fun thing is, and I hate it because I can interpret EKGs as well. And somebody puts, ooh.
yeah, whoop, that guy ain't gonna make it.
Yeah.
But,
am I okay? Yeah, you're fine.
but yeah, I mean, and so we're figuring. I mean, if it comes down to that, since we're on that topic, I would think that probably with Sasquatch, I bet probably a major part of their diet is meat.
That's right.
Um,
If you're gonna have a sandwich, why do you just want a lettuce and tomato sandwich? Slap that bacon on it, baby.
Absolutely, absolutely, and lots of it too. Double bacon.
Bodie's got a great question too.
Oh,
should we expect
yeah.
a Sasquatch?
Should we expect Sasquatch to have an extended gut like a gorilla?
Well, I know
I got a good one for this because
but I know there's been some reports of like a pot-bellied Sasquatch, but
yes, that's true.
It has to do with their diet, though.
That's it exactly. See, I because I love gorillas, man, and the reason why that's why gorillas' guts are so big and extended like that because they are primarily a vegetarian. They don't eat meat.
Correct.
Now they will eat things like grubs and some insects sometimes, but primarily all they're eating is vegetation, and they have to eat a lot of it because it's low in nutrients, but they have to eat a lot of it, so they need a big gut to process all that vegetation that they eat. So with Sasquatch, me thinking primarily they're probably eating meat. I wouldn't expect too many of them to have an extended gut for the same reason that a gorilla would have it. Now you might find, I don't know, some people might see a fat Sasquatch, or something like that. That probably just means he's eating a lot of good meat. I mean, apparently this guy doesn't miss a deer when it goes by him. So, yeah.
This is turning into Mog's show. What's next? Fishing?
Yeah, what's next? Fishing? No, not fishing.
I'm not a fisherman. I've deep sea fished a couple of times, a few times.
Well, I haven't been out in a long time fishing. I've been busy with other stuff. But yeah, I'm thinking that they're primarily probably, but I wouldn't put it past them to stroll through a berry patch and
absolutely,
grab some berries and or raid somebody's orchard. Look, like I said, there was a farmer that told me that the way he dealt with them was by leaving them bushels of corn because he swore that they would come in and he's seen them, at the edge of his cornfield, and they would come in
munching in corn. Yep.
Yeah.
I've got several reports from, believe it or not, some Navajo farmers that were in a place called Lower Fruitland in New Mexico that were for a while we're seeing Sasquatch pretty regularly for like a year, and they would skedaddle out of the cornfields, but they would be sitting in the cornfields grabbing corn.
Yeah.
And but Bodie's got another question. Why do
that?
Well, because the sagittal crest is not necessarily, and I know what they're saying is the sagittal crest has to do with
The jaw muscles,
the
where they
jaw
anchor.
muscles,
Yep.
but um, who knows? Maybe a Sasquatch, because orangutans have sagittal crests in their meat eaters too. But not all meat is soft. Remember,
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe the Sasquatch chews bones too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
And
need calcium. They need calcium, and one would think that their bone structure, they would need a good supply of calcium.
yeah.
So maybe they chew bones too. That would maybe explain why their teeth look wider to people. And
I also think that, they're going by a pretty grainy video, and I know that people have said, "Oh, they've cleaned it up, this and that," but every time you mess with something, you change it a bit. It's just like the new CGI or the new AI thing where they tried to clear up her face. Well, I'm sorry, you can't say 100% that's what her face is.
right,
But so for me, man, that might not necessarily be a sagittal crest. She could have a rather pointed kind of head without having a sagittal crest. And I say this because Rasta did not have what I would call a sagittal crest at all. He had a pretty sloping forehead and, pretty elongated type thing. I couldn't see the back because I was just staring, but I mean, so he did not have a sagittal crest.
and
like
female
you
gorillas
would
do not
see
have
on
a
a gorilla.
yeah. Female gorillas do not have a sagittal crest.
No, they don't either. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm not so sure that
it's
that's
not tied to diet, and I don't think it's
yeah,
tied to diet at all.
yeah. So I don't necessarily believe myself that that is a sagittal crest that you see on Patty. Um, so, but yeah. So I mean, lots of people. Yeah, you're right. See, yeah, Lockbeard says the same thing. It's the sagittal crest is not confirmed.
Mm.
Because there's a lot of people that have had encounters that, well, personally, I'm going to tell you, yeah, I believe them. And what they described, they didn't describe a sagittal crest, you know. Um, so yeah, I mean that's up in the air, but um, these are fun things to think about, and they're they're the type of questions that I want to ask. These are the type of questions that are scientific based questions, right? Their diet, etc. Their biology, which, man, it would be really cool if we can get to a point where we know what it is, man. You know, these are all the questions that I want to know about them. Um, I want answers to those things, not just not just to have another encounter. I would love to see another one. I would love to see Rasta again. Um, but I just have this insatiable thirst for knowledge, man, and I want to know all that other stuff, man. I want to know, you know, how all that stuff. How far do they travel around? How you know what is their social structure if they have one, and all that kind of stuff, man. That's the stuff that really interests me, and which I can't say for a fact. Although, as we know, there are people out there that'll state things like that as fact.
What is your typical day of the Sasquatch? Well, at 6 a.m., the Sasquatch gets up, jumps in the shower, has breakfast, goes off to work. 9:30, he has a conference call, and at 4, just
Oh, Bodie, I can. Yeah, look, I'll try. Look, I'm not an evolution expert or anything like that, but I do study it quite a bit. And his question: where do they evolve from? Since there aren't any great ape progenitors in North America. Well,
that's wrong.
this is a theory. It's just a hypothesis, and it would be same thing. Where did they evolve from? Well, my hypothesis is, and this is just based from observation of one thing. My hypothesis is that they got to be somewhere in the tree, possibly have the same um, the same ancestor that we had with the existing apes, primarily chimps and etc. So somewhere along the line, who knows? This thing could have been a branch off the Australopithecus. Um, it could be a branch off of one of the uh, species in the Homo genus. And that doesn't require that there's any progenitors in North America, because we know that Homo sapiens got to America by crossing over, most likely the land bridge when it was clear. Some of them may have actually come by, boat or raft or something like that. There's several theories about that, but there was no human progenitors in North America before humans got here. So that's where Sasquatch would have
Right.
come from.
Right.
More than likely somewhere Asia, over the land bridge, the Beringia as it was called, which is now the Bering Strait. So yeah, good question though.
Yeah.
But now that's just a hypothesis. I'm thinking it's here, and yes, like you said, there was never no ape fossils or anything have been found on this continent. Um, you know, but that's they they had to come over from somewhere, and so that's probably where they came from.
Right. Yeah. There is no. It makes a lot of sense to me that when we were all after the land bridge was there, why that the progenitors of the Sasquatch did not come over with us, or perhaps even the Sasquatch did. How
They
do we
did,
know that?
or
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
That's my hypothesis.
Right.
Um,
Is
that's why I think that it could be evolved from some other species
right.
in the Homo genus, and it actually came across um, that land bridge before Homo sapiens were out of Europe and etc. and out of Asia, before they spread out like that. So that's my hypothesis. I got no way to prove that yet, but it's just a hypothesis from
Yeah.
everything that I'm looking at.
And here's a great fact: is that in Cohoes, New York, which is where I lived for a few years back, it's probably maybe 30 miles south, right along on the other side of the Hudson from me. And between 1898 and 1902, they found a 98% intact skeleton of a mastodont.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, animals do get around.
Oh yeah.
And I'll lead into this conversation is that I had a who shall remain nameless, but there was a particular researcher who, I don't know what his motive was, or why, but he's trying to tell me how it's impossible for a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch to exist on the eastern side of Lake George since it's so populated.
Mhm.
But it's not.
Right. Right.
You've been there, Joe.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And for some reason, he couldn't put one and one together. Well, how do they get to the west? What? Well, how do the bear get to the west?
Yeah.
Because they're not part of the same group.
Right. Right.
It blew my mind, the rationalization of trying to, and the fact was that he stated, well, I lived up there. Hell, he lived there for a few years. He hasn't lived up there all his life. He hasn't researched that area at all.
Yeah.
And obviously doesn't know the area very well, because he's trying to tell me that, well, the east, going out east towards Vermont is so populated. No, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
I'm going to clear this. I think Bodie got a little. I might not have been clear on this. He said, "Wouldn't a raft or boat mean they evolved from creatures that made tools?" I wasn't saying that the Sasquatch came by. I was saying Homo sapiens. They came over the bridge. Some of them may have came by raft or boat or whatever. There's several theories on that, or hypotheses, whichever. Depending on how you're using the word and looking at it, it would be hypothesis. in science.
Well,
But
I don't
so I
think
didn't
that.
mean
Yeah.
Sasquatch, because I think that the Sasquatch crossed that bridge before Homo sapiens did. And the reason I think that too is because of the natives. The natives have said, several different tribes. They say they were here before we were. I've heard that from several different native uh, tribes. Um, so if that's true, then yeah, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it, had to have crossed over and got onto this continent before we did.
Well,
Or it could have been one of those other hominin species um, that uh, got over when that bridge, and Sasquatch could have evolved on this continent from that. Um,
that I find doubtful. Believe
well,
it or
yeah,
not, because for some reason I think we would have found some. This whole country has been dug up, and we found Homo erectus. We found
we haven't found
Aboriginal.
Homo erectus here, not on this continent.
Yeah,
Where? I must have missed
Oklahoma,
it.
Oklahoma.
Because what I'm thinking is, like, they've shown where again, I think it's in Mexico. They found a butchery site of mastodons, I think it was, and stone tools,
Yep.
and they dated this to 130,000 years ago.
Don't forget, before that land bridge, before that we were also Pangea, where
Well, that was
everything was
a
this.
long, yeah, that was a
Right.
long time ago.
But
So,
let me continue on that. That I think that if a progenitor of a Sasquatch was here, and it evolved on this continent, I think we would have found some example of that, because
yeah,
this country's
yeah,
been so dug up.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
because even to this day, especially like in Albany or Rensselaer, which is across the river, they'll do some digs and all of a sudden they're like, oh, we found Native Americans, or up. In fact, at one time they dug up in Albany, they found what appeared to be a 50-gallon drum, and they opened it up and there was a body in it. And it turned out they solved a 89-year-old cold case.
Right, right.
But I really think that that they were already a Sasquatch before they showed up over here.
And that may actually be. I mean, I'm just throwing things out. My brain's throwing things out, thinking, all these questions, like Bodie was saying, and asking about how to get here, et cetera, this and that. Well, these are the things that I do think about. Um, and I mean, but things make me hopeful that like the Mexico thing. I mean, that shows that there was some hominin species, and they're still arguing a little bit about it, from what I understand. Some paleontologists are arguing that that the stone tools aren't actually the stone tools, but others are like, no, they are. And look, see, this is how they match with the signs of butchery on the bones of these animals. And what other kind of animal out there butchers, you know, something with hands, like and so that makes me hopeful, because that shows me also that maybe these things are close to us, like people are saying. I mean, I know that sounds like I don't care if they are, but it would be neat if we'd be like, holy shit, these guys are descended, and that doesn't matter whether they were already that way before they crossed, but if they if they're an offshoot of like Homo erectus, or even if they're an offshoot of like I said, the Homo Heidelbergensis.
or
Heidelbergensis.
Paranthropus,
Or even, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's all hypothesis, man.
former everything is trying to get at you. So what about Noah's Ark, Joe?
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh well. Hey, I don't know if you've seen History of the World Part 2.
I have.
The Noah's Ark scene. Why do you have all dogs? There's nothing but dogs on the Ark. How about a cat? No, I'm not a cat guy.
Right. I saw one today. I think it was. It was a cartoon Noah's Ark, and they show the animals going up there, and they show the two lions. They both have manes,
Ouch.
and somebody's comment on the cartoon. Whoever posted it said, "Good luck mating that pair of lions."
Well, the funniest cartoon I ever saw was from the late great Don Larson, who used to do the Far Side cartoons, and he had a
Right back at you, man.
He had one where there's a couple of lions looking at each other, kind of like this, and you just see these four-like hooves sticking up and there's eight hooves sticking up, and Noah's standing there with the scowl on his face, and he's saying, "Well, so much for the unicorns. From now on, all carnivores are confined to C deck."
Bodai says tool use is a very strong claim. Well, don't misunderstand here, Bodai. We're not making any claims here. We're just
no. As a matter of fact, just to the opposite. If anything, the Sasquatch has only been known to use very rudimentary tools, like perhaps a stick, maybe a rock, and that's about it. There's no tool foraging or anything like that. So, to me, people, who make the claims that Bigfoot uses fire, which I've heard that wild claim before. Because where we elevated our knowledge base is when we started cooking our food, and the cooking our food breaks the proteins down, makes it easier for our brains to put its nutrients to use, which increased our brain size and our capacity for learning.
Yeah. And and there's no evidence for fire use. Now, am I saying it's impossible? No, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's likely that they don't need to use fire, and they don't.
I've never come across a Sasquatch fire pit. Never.
Yeah, no, me neither. I mean, I've seen areas that made me go, but I've only seen it a couple of times, and there was nothing to make me think, oh my God, Sasquatch uses fire, anything like that. It could have been just somebody out there. It could have been just a spot that got hit by lightning too, and had some sticks that were, because there was never any stones around these things. There was a pile of burnt sticks and etc., but that could have been done by anybody.
Maybe the person seeing Bigfoot using the Sasquatch was smoking some wild peyote.
Who knows, right? But yeah, so there's no evidence of that. Now, it's not out of the realm of possibility, sure, but there's no evidence for it. If we find evidence for it, fine. Then we can start, maybe going, well, we do have some strong evidence, but we don't so far. Nor do we have strong evidence for, we don't have strong evidence at all, or any evidence at all of Bigfoot manufacturing tools. Now, if you think about it, lots of animals have the ability of some tool usage. We brought this up the other night, like otters. Otters will use a rock to crack open a clam. And if these things that are throwing rocks out there, like Steve gets rocks thrown at him, and I've heard other people say they got rocks thrown at them. Now, if those things are indeed Sasquatch throwing a rock, then that shows tool usage. Sorry, that is tool usage.
Right. Rudimentary, very rudimentary, but
right, very rudimentary, but it is tool usage. So a lot of animals can use tools. I mean, even a crow flying over and dropping a nut or something on a hard rock, that's kind of like tool usage, because that crow knows it needs to drop that nut onto something hard like a rock to crack it open. So there's a lot of it. So as far as that goes, yeah, this is all just conjecture, but it's something that is quite literally possible, given the evidence of things in nature that kind of just, make it seem like, well, you know what? Yeah, they probably do. Now, I've never seen a Sasquatch pick up a stick and hit a tree. If they do that, that's tool usage.
Right.
I tend to think the knocks are something that they're doing otherwise with their body.
I'm not so sure.
I don't know.
I'm still very confused
Yeah,
about that because I've heard stuff that sounds definitely like wood,
yeah, I know. I have
unprovoked,
too.
very close
So
by
yeah,
in warm weather. That
yeah, me too. And I'm up in the air about it because I mean, almost everybody's heard what I'm about to say, and that is that Louisville slugger sound out
yeah,
in the woods, man. And I'm like, no, I don't think a Sasquatch is making that noise with his mouth. Some pops that you hear out there, maybe, but yeah. So I don't know. I'm up in the air about it. It's in the realm of possibility. And you do have to add up whether you believe. Okay, this is hard because I'm not saying because there is a pretty strict definition of evidence, but that is part of the evidence. I mean, this happens so often in areas where there have been credible people, you know, uh, relating how they've seen something in this area and this is what they heard and etc. So you kind of do got to add some of that in, man. I mean, yeah, not all of it. So you take all the data, you look at all the data, you see which is good data, and you can go, well, no, that doesn't seem likely. That's probably not good data. That's not giving me good information, but this data is. I mean, again, I'm no expert in all this stuff, but that's what I think. So, um, yeah, I mean, there could be a lot of behaviors to Sasquatch that, we wouldn't, we can't say it's true, but like Steve points out, if this thing is a primate, which it has to be, it has to be. Um, it may have similar behaviors as all of us primates, man.
well, it has to because it's shown
You know,
primate behavior is a class of its own. It's its own. Now, does it break down into differences as we go into the different family types? Absolutely.
sure, yeah,
But,
yeah,
you know, we act the same in our territories, we act the same in our home ranges, and we act the same and that goes from the great apes to the New World monkeys to the lesser monkeys. They all act the same way.
yeah,
Particularly, and they
yeah. And
all,
you have to take that into consideration with us. Going from this naturalistic zoological perspective, which is where I think you have to start. Um, and so you have to take all this into perspective. I mean, look at us, right? I mean, our closest relative within the great apes is chimpanzees. And you notice that even though we don't act exactly the same as them, we're not running around screaming or whatever, but we do have a lot of the same behaviors as chimpanzees. Chimpanzees also, with facial expressions, have a lot of the same facial expressions that we do, and they use them in the same way that we do. I mean, if you look at all these comparisons, um, there's a lot to be compared, of primate behavior, and we can see pattern that repeats
Mhm.
in between species of primates. They all do it, so you know, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
It's all hypothesis, but it's fun. It's fun, and we're gonna have all these answers someday. I think, hopefully, before I'm dead. I won't count on it, but hopefully. I think a lot of things are going to move forward, man. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that's on the horizon out there. I've seen, I've seen my share of negativity about, Sasquatch, science meets legend too. I actually believe in what they're doing there. I'm all for it, with the experiment and testing, what could be fingerprint oil from, one of these creatures. I think that's at least an attempt. It's trying to
We
move the
got to we
ball
got
forward.
to got to push the envelope.
Yeah, yeah. So so there's good things. And there's other people that are out there that are doing the good things, and they are, you know, what was I going to say? They're going about it in the way that at least personally, in my opinion, is the way it should be done. And we are what I call the 1%, which I got that from somebody else said that, and I thought that's almost, and I don't know if that's the correct percentage, but it's just used to express that there's a small percentage of us that are doing things this way. Yes, but they're out there, Alex and Steve, and I mean, there are several I can name, but there's a small percentage, and but they're out there trying to do it, and that's the important thing to me.
Bodie has a question. I saw it earlier, but
Sorry. Is it odd to either of you that no Sasquatch or relatives of Sasquatch have been found in any of the bone pits associated with megafauna die-offs or La Brea tar pits?
well, La Brea tar pits. Did they not have dinosaurs in there as well?
No, they don't.
I'm not quite sure.
No, the La Brea tar pits is pretty much from let me get this right. I think it's the Miocene, which includes most of the megafauna, things like lots and lots of saber tooths. Plus they have the mastodons or mammoths or whatever in there, and other ones, other animals that lived in that time. And this is something that was very interesting. They finally did find a human in the La Brea tar pits. It was a female. Now they don't know. Now it's Homo sapien, but and I forgot what it was dated to, but it was incredible because I'm like, they've never found any human remains in there, and so there's a mystery: is how did she get in there? Did she fall in there? Was she put in there after she died? I don't know. So they don't know how she got there.
So my guess is it's from what I see is the remains were discovered in the pits in 1914. Is the partial skeleton of a woman at around 18 to 25 years of age at death. She had been dated at 10,220 to 10,250 years BP before present. These are the only human remains to have ever been discovered at the La Brea tar pits. So my answer to that is, one human skeleton. Am I surprised that they haven't found any Sasquatch skeletons? No, not at all. Well, they've only found one human.
Yeah.
So probably, why? Because most humans. Now, see, here's a very interesting thought. They don't know how it happened, but perhaps she got thrown in.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Because the humans were smart enough to go around it. Right?
Yeah.
And that's why there's none. So if a human is smart enough to go around it, I think a Sasquatch would be too.
Would be too, yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, most of the ways the other animals got trapped is because, like, a mastodon would get trapped in there, and then the saber-tooths would come along and see that the mastodon is trapped, and they would go after the mastodon, and then they would get trapped. So that's how all of those animals ended up in those tar pits over the eons or whatever that thing has existed. And the La Brea tar pits have been there as tar pits for
50,000 years.
Quite a while, yeah.
I know. I just checked it. I was like, I don't know this. I got to look it up real quick.
Yeah. So, it doesn't surprise me. And other than the La Brea tar pits, where fossilization, of course, is going to take place, other than that, other places, fossilization, as we've talked about before, it's not real common. It's not a common occurrence. It's special circumstances under which something will fossilize and leave a fossil.
And we find them usually in plains areas too.
Yeah. That's why our fossil record is actually incomplete. I mean, I keep going back to it. I mean, we have an extensive fossil record, and it's very informative about the diversity and evolution of life on the planet. But there is probably 98%. That's what they've said, and I believe them. 98% of the species that have ever existed on Earth, we probably will never know about because they did not leave fossils behind.
Well, think about it. The Gigantopithecus. They've never found a skull. They've never found a mandible.
Well,
I'm
they
sorry.
did.
I'm sorry. Not a mandible. A maxilla. They never found a maxilla.
Right.
They've never found a vertebrae, a femur, any of the long bones, a rib. All they have are a few mandibles and some teeth.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
So for something that existed 100,000 years ago, that was a primate. And 100,000 years ago in the spectrum isn't that long ago.
Not when you consider deep time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, but that's the thing too. It's amazing that, just out of a few pieces of that. Now they don't know exactly what that Gigantopithecus looked like, but they can gather a good amount of information just by that mandible. Because if you think symmetrically, right, the other side's going to be exactly the same, pretty much. So you can gather a lot. They've gathered a lot of information from that and the teeth. Like, for example, they pretty much know what its diet was from the teeth that they've recovered, etc. And so I know that everybody's seen that replica that they made of Gigantopithecus skull, the complete thing. Even though they've never found a complete one.
Right.
Yes, granted, that is pretty much conceptualized, but it is based on good evidence of just that jaw and how it would have had to, how the rest of it must have looked to be able to support a jaw, etc. So, yeah, and I think I saw somebody in the comments mention earlier something about Gigantopithecus coming over, and I know that was one of the hypotheses that Jeff has voiced at one time.
Well, not that they've come over, that the Sasquatch.
No, not that they've come over.
Yeah,
no, but
evolved from
that the Gigantopithecus evolved into Bigfoot,
right.
Which I don't really see myself, but
The thing is, we just don't know. We don't know.
We don't know. I mean, it very well could be that Gigantopithecus, and now suddenly I see something that I don't know. Rasta could be evolved from that, for all I know, because I don't know that much about him, right? So, and I'm not a paleontologist. I'm not an anthropologist or paleoanthropologist. I try to study it and learn as much about it as I can, but I'm in no means, a degreed person in those areas. I'm just a little educated on it, but I keep trying to learn more and more about it because I really do think it's really gonna really play into all of this. When science finally goes, oh, there's a Sasquatch out there, and they really start studying it, and we're able to, somehow be able to find some and
get
study
some
them
answers.
that way. Yeah. So now the other thing I wanted to go on, before we close out the show, we got a few more. The other thing I mentioned in the title, we covered the Bigfoot, is a Bigfoot community. Now, I know that a lot of people, they see like, every. I know, calm down.
Oh, there's the Bigfoot community.
Calm down, yeah. There it is. Calm down. So maybe I'll use that from now on. Grasshopper pseudo anthropologist. Yeah. I'm a pseudo anthropologist. No, I'm not. But so yeah, there's and I know that there's people out there. We have a lot of stuff going on, such a wide spread, and a lot of times people see a lot of negativity about it, and etc. And aside from that, I thought, I would like to point out something that's actually really good about the Bigfoot community. Um, you know, we got our there's the factions, and there's the people that are out to no good, and etc. But there's also the other side, which is the more important side, is that there is the side of really good community. You know, I happen to be in that part of that community, um, and everybody knows I've ran into some rough times, man. Here, I've fallen hard and didn't know where to go, which way to turn, and I turned to the only people I knew I could turn to, um, and that was the people in the Bigfoot community. And all of a sudden, you know, pretty much immediately, there were some people that they popped into my store and they bought some stuff, you know, and that's like, hey, to me, that is a big gesture. Yeah, maybe it's a few bucks to me, but those few bucks, man, they make a world of difference, right? So people started doing that. Some people made some purchases from the store, and then I had one guy that he made two rather large donations to my PayPal. And what that showed me was, that's the good side of the Bigfoot community. That there's people out there that watch me and watch us, that what, if you go to them and you go, look, I'm at my wit's end, people, I don't have any other options, I need help, and they jump to your help, man. um so that, guys, is what you really should be looking for, uh other than the real answers to all this. When you get into this Bigfoot community, you need to be looking for those people that you can trust, that are honest, that are open, that are human, man. And you'd be surprised, man. I mean, I didn't think I was had any options, man, and I got hit pretty hard. But people, were in my corner, that didn't I didn't know they were in my corner, but they were in my corner, man, and they picked me back up and said, you know what, you can move forward, man. We got you. We got your back, man. And that is something about the Bigfoot community that, you know, they can't take that away from you. They can't take away the people that I know. And that's what showed me too, man, is that, there's people out there that care about you, man, in the Bigfoot community.
Well, there are
I've
certain.
managed to meet several of them, lots of them, like Steve right here sitting next to me, my buddy Mike from Tactical Bigfoot Research, um, lots of the people in the chat, man. I'm lucky. I'm lucky because I've been doing this for a while, just the Bigfoot thing. But when I got into this online, man, I pretty much almost immediately, when I started making connections, I started making connections with the right people, and the people that are caring, and yeah, you're going to run into some people out there that you got to be careful, because they're just out there to take advantage of either your desire to believe or whatever, you know, and they'll sell you, but they're to me, those are the people that, yeah, I don't pay attention to them, man. I stay with the people that I know that I can help, and the people I know that care about me. And that's the thing, man. That is the thing about the Bigfoot community. Yeah, we've got these, factions, and there may always be those factions for all I know. Um, but you find your group of people, man, and you may say we're all one big community. It is, I guess. Um, but
We're not.
yeah,
We're a confederacy,
a
and we're made
confederacy.
up of a bunch of different communities that
Yeah, yeah.
that
And I got into the right one, man. And I don't know, man. I'm so fucking humbled. Um, and it took a bit, man, because I'm like, dude, I don't want to ask these people for help again because I've, first time couple people, it was much less, and they helped me out. And and Leon was like, people love you though, man, and if you need help, you should ask them for help because I look, I can't ask my family for help. They don't know. Um, so I had to swallow my pride. I had to swallow my pride, and I had to push down my ego and just go, you know what? It's not going to hurt just to tell these people, be real with them, and tell them the situation you're in, man. You need to get back to work. You need to be able to provide for your family, and they responded, man. And that's the good part about this community, man. It's not all bad. It's not all bad at all, man. It's not all bad at all. Not at all.
no, we get to have great conversations with a lot of great people. We know them in chat by their screen names, a lot of them, and eventually some of them we get to know them by first name. Some are privileged to know them by first and last name,
Mm-hmm.
but they're all family. And I go to here and I see a lot of the names I see over in mine. And, despite whatever, differences I may have with Raptor, he's always been there. So he'll be welcome back again Sunday. It's
Yeah, well, me and
it's
Raptor,
not,
Raptor has respect for me. He has respect for
well,
you too.
Leslie, the way I look at
Yeah,
this, Joe, is it's not a matter of respect. Everybody has their own unique personalities.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
and and there's times when people found me a little persnickety or maybe a little snarky or whatever. Ooh, me snarky? No, but
There might have been a couple of times.
just a couple. But the bottom line is that we're a family. No matter
Yeah,
how you cut it, it's like having an extended family, and we always have that crazy uncle. Yes, Raptor, I'm calling you crazy uncle.
yeah. Raptor's a crazy uncle.
That's just the receipt. That's all.
Yeah, yeah.
but but
No, he's part of the family. Sure,
but
absolutely.
and we may have family disputes amongst others.
Yeah,
It's all good.
yeah. But
But
and
when we
that's the
all but
thing
when
is
we
that
all are here, what we all are here though, and I can say this is we're honest and we're looking for the truth and we're not looking for bullshit and we're
right,
not, we're about helping one another when we can because not everybody can help, you know.
absolutely,
Joe, I would
absolutely.
if I could have helped you, I would have been there in a
Oh
heartbeat.
yeah, and that's the thing. I want
Yeah, but
I mean, I know that, and that's the
uh,
other thing I know is that I see all these people out there, and I'm in the same boat, man. There's people out there that I've seen that I'm like, damn, man, I wish I could help him or her, but I'm
right,
not in that position, right? And so I know there's people out there that support me other ways, like come watch my silly ass all the time when I put my face on
right,
screen, etc.
right.
And I know that they're out there. They're just as important to me, man. I love everybody, man, and I know that there's people out there that probably be like, man, I really wish I could help him. But you know what? Coming here, watching me, subscribing, whatever, that helps me. That helps me feel, you know what? And when it comes down to it, it helps me feel good too. And that's important because then at least I know, hey, man, there's somebody out there who's paying attention to me, man. There's somebody out there listening to me.
Yeah,
There's somebody out there
exactly.
that might think a- along the
That you're
same
not crazy.
line, and I'm not crazy, right? So
Weird, weird, weird.
Yeah. So yeah, all these people are very important, man. And so it's that
You know,
heartens me, man.
here's the thing: is that and I'm glad you brought that up because I started the membership area on my thing. And people, well, why do you want to do that? Why is it about the money? Well, the money I spend to keep the show going is, you know, not really that horrible. But I could spend $100 a month less on other for other things too.
Yeah.
And the amount of equipment I've had to buy over the last just few years to keep up, because there is a manner of keeping up. You want to put on, you want to give people the best they can have.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, I got a couple of credit cards that are cracked.
yeah.
So that's why I did that. That's why I put the membership, help kind of recoup some of the costs that I spend every month.
Yeah.
But it had nothing
Well,
to do with.
that's the difference, though, Steve. Is that when I see you? Yeah. Look, I've said this before. There's no harm in making money. At least with you, people know what they're getting. People know what they're getting. They're not getting a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
They're getting, they're seeing somebody who's honestly engaged in this, trying to figure it out, man.
And when I've
So
done,
when
and
you're
when I'm
doing that
doing
kind
them,
of thing, and yeah, people, I don't see any problem with that. Other
on the
people,
member side, I'm trying to make it a little more personal.
yeah,
Because I'm trying to,
yeah,
here's a little bit more about me here, so
yeah,
you guys have, invested in me. I'm going to invest by showing you a little more of my private side, a little bit, a little more of my fun side and other stuff.
yeah. Because I mean that's totally leagues away from the other stuff that we're talking about the people who are actual grifters that are trying to just sell you a bill of fare.
Well, be
With
careful with the word grifter, because a grifter, by definition, is somebody that takes something for nothing. I kind of had to have a long thought process about that, calling with certain people do grifting,
right.
because they are providing entertainment.
Well, yeah, I guess you
And
got
they're
to
not,
look at it. Yeah,
and they're not like the big YouTube channels. It's not like they're forcing somebody.
that's true.
They're giving them something at least, right?
Yeah, you got
Right.
That's a way that I
But
have not looked at it like that. Yeah.
right. But I look at
What
it
are
from the
you?
aspect of I don't like to misinform. When I set my website up many, many moons ago, I was going to have, and this, unfortunately, when I set SquatchDetective.com up in 2006, started the podcast also in 2006, journalism wasn't a bad word. Right?
Yeah.
Journalism had integrity.
Yeah.
And that's how I wanted to set the precedent on my site was we are going to have journalistic integrity in this. We are going to check sources. We are going to tell the truth. If we make a mistake, we're going to retract and say, hey, we effed up.
Yeah, we were wrong, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Nobody is perfect. Far be it from me to say I'm even close to perfect.
Right.
Okay. But I owe it. It's something I owe. If people are going to spend time with me, and now I'm even asking them for more. If you want to become this or whatever, but if you're going to spend time with me, I owe it to the audience. And Joe, you feel the same way. I know I've talked to you about this 1,000 times. We owe it to our audience to be the most honest we can.
Absolutely.
And what we're saying is not something that is double speak or saying it because it's popular. Because, damn it, if I was saying things,
I say a lot of things that are not popular. Yeah.
If we were about saying things popular, every little red circle would be a Bigfoot. Every little bump in the night would be Bigfoot. But that's not what we're about. Yeah. But what I love is the community that we have here, and it grows sometimes smaller or slower than we want to. But, every person that comes over to our channels, to me, is a win.
Absolutely.
And we fight to keep them there.
Absolutely.
By giving them the truth. Now, sometimes it gets quiet. You try to keep them entertained.
Yeah.
I get that,
Oh,
but
absolutely, man. Hey, for me to say that I don't do this for
right,
entertainment purposes as well, absolutely I do. I hope I'm entertaining to
yeah,
people, but being entertaining, yes, but I also want to be informative and honest.
yep.
Period. And that's what the people get with you. In fact, Kaiju pretty much just said it in a nutshell, which is basically the way I feel about it all, is that there's nothing wrong with trying to make an honest buck. You're not scamming people, and that's the
No.
important part.
And
You
if I
know?
can, if I go off topic on the channel, try to give somebody a laugh or try to give somebody some information or just talk about,
Yeah.
it's because maybe it's a slow Bigfoot week. Because if there's a Bigfoot story, I'm on it. A good one
Yeah.
that I get my hooks in.
Yeah.
If I can't get my hooks into something, a lot of times I don't report on it, or it takes me time. That's why when the hot story comes out, why do you think I'm a week behind it?
Right. Because
Not,
you
not
want to check
because
it
not
out
because I'm
first,
not
and
paying attention, but because
you want to
part
do your
of
research.
because I'm making a story, a legitimate journalistic shot at what's going on.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yes,
Um, I've actually been thinking about when I'm going to be busy here once I do get the Jeep back on the road. I got to dive right back into work and work really hard for a while. But I was thinking that the other day about the channel because and that's the other good thing. When it comes to this community, man. Here I am thinking, well, I'm not really showing. I'm not out here like hey, look, there's this is what happened, and I'm not doing all that right now, and so I'm like, but people are like, man, we love seeing you, we love seeing you, dude, this and that, and so I actually thought about that. I'm like, you know what? In the meantime, I think I wanted to start doing more of that. And yes, I'm 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 imitating some other people because it is something that's cool to do. And I thought, that's what I'm going to start adding into this new relaunch of this channel is that I'm going to start doing some of these different news stories. If I can when I come across them, just something to add in. You know,
and Joe, I'm going to give you a little bit of breaking news right here, right now, because I haven't even said this on my own channel yet.
oh,
But I don't know exactly when. It could be the end of this year, maybe next year, beginning of next year in the spring. But I have making my return to network TV.
awesome, awesome.
Unfortunately, not something that lines my pockets, but where I can do this on full time. But I am
That's
making a return and I'll drop a little even more. It's going to be on the History Channel. So
awesome.
already filmed it. Filming is in the can. Uh, Outback Orchard asked me what the name of my channel is. It's Squatch DTV.
Oh, yes, and there is a link in the description below too. There's a link
So
to Steve's channel there. Somebody said something here. Oh, Kaiju said you should put the hat in the store or on the store.
he's only got one.
I only got the one, man. That's it. I mean, you could have the original Sasquatch hat, but
And I apologize to everybody for the glare tonight. Wow, that does get. Look how the screen does when I cover it up. Look how dark it gets.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I apologize
yeah.
for the glare.
I could sell the hat in the store, but I'd have to charge $1 million for it. So I mean, but yeah,
What
um,
was that? What was that Caddyshack comment Rodney Dangerfield had? You remember it?
which now?
Caddyshack, Rodney Dangerfield comment about the hat. Remember that one?
Oh, no, I don't.
Hey, look at that hat. Hey, bet you want to buy a hat like this, you get a free bowl of soup with it. Looks good on you, though.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Oh, everybody's telling you to auction the hat now.
yeah. Auction the hat. I kind of like this hat, man.
Thank you, Jen.
Kind of like it. You guys could probably go on Amazon and find the same hat, just like I did. But yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna have to make a phony Amazon page and put it on my show Sunday night. I found Joe's head on the internet. I'll make it like some outrageous price.
There you go. There you go. Official Squatch hat. Oh man, yeah. So stop, Sally.
Oh my goodness. Tristan just said a porcupine got Chewy from Brian, and Chewy goes hiking. He's going to the ER. Oh,
Oh no.
our prayers are out to him. I'm sure he'll be okay. But
Yeah. Oh.
it's
Yeah,
got
you
me
know
paid.
that's one of the things I always worry about with Sally out in the woods with me. Now she hasn't run into anything dangerous or
I
had
hope it's not Chris Noel's porcupine.
yeah, that porcupine's missing a few quills now. Yeah, I've always worried. But you know, the funny thing is, I was under the impression that porcupines are mostly nocturnal. Um,
They are.
so you know, during the day when we're running around out there, she hasn't run into any. And at night, she usually stays right, you know, by the camp with me. Um, but
Believe it or not, I got a picture in Vermont of a porcupine in the daytime.
yeah,
Trotting
yeah,
along. I got a few pictures of him. He saw us. He's like, oh, I'm out of here.
yeah, yeah. We saw one up there in the Adirondacks,
Yep.
and I'd never actually seen a porcupine. And I've lived, you know, I grew up here in New York, man, and I'd never seen a porcupine.
Oh, we got tons of them over here.
I knew that we had porcupines in New York, but I never, growing up hunting,
Of
going out in the
course.
woods, I've never seen a porcupine.
I've never seen a bobcat either until I moved here.
Yeah, yeah,
And I felt I lived more remote where I was. And I've seen more animal life here,
there, yeah,
caught it on the trail camera
yeah,
behind my house than I have up in the Adirondack State Park when I deploy the
yeah.
trail cameras.
Yeah, you put out some shorts there about
Yep.
some of the animal, yeah, that you were
And that's
capturing.
the other cool thing. Any new videos, when I do the shorts for the trail cam videos, I'm putting the full 1080s on the membership side.
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah, man. I mean, so there you go. I mean, that's another thing, man. I mean, I've seen, I've seen an equal amount now. If Ross is a Sasquatch, which I think he is, um, I've seen an equal amount of Sasquatch uh, as compared to porcupines. I've seen one each. You know, um, yeah, because that one man was in the Adirondacks when we were up there. We came back from the fireworks. It was nighttime, and here it was trundling up the side of the road, man. And I looked, and I was like, "Holy shit, is that a porcupine?" And yep, sure enough,
Yep.
I'm like, "There you go." And
Tristan's-
so I've never seen a porcupine up until that point, man. So it doesn't seem too odd to me that you wouldn't run into Sasquatch that often. You know,
I haven't seen a bear in the wild either. Knock wood. I don't want to.
I've seen a couple. You know, not very many, and they've been spaced out. You know, over a span of years. You know, but and like I said, the last black bear I ran into, well, didn't run into him, but last one I saw was what? Was it last year? Had to have been the year before. Me and Sally and I were camping alone, and we were out in that area. It's a state forest called Vandermark, and we were camped right near this little meadow park. The camp is in the trees, but right next to it, spreads out. There's this little meadow area there, and across from that, the forest takes up again. And Sally was standing at the edge of the camp, man, and it was during the daytime. She was standing at the edge of the camp, and she was staring out into the meadow. And I kind of looked there, and I'm like, "What's she looking at?" And I could hear her. She was like, just really low, right? Just and I'm like, "What's she looking at, man?" And I'm looking out into the thing, and at first I'm not seeing anything, man. You know, all I'm seeing is bushes and this and that, and then I finally see this dark shape in the meadow, right? And I'm like, "Holy shit, that's what she's staring at." I'm like, "What is that?" Because it was, at first I'm like, "Is that a what the hell is that a what am I looking at?" And it moved, And I was like, and then it started to like, and I thought, oh my God, my heart started racing. I'm like, oh my God, am I going to see a Sasquatch again? Oh my God. And it got, and then I was like, oh fuck, it's a black bear.
See, I'd be excited as hell to see. I'd be like, oh, it's a black bear.
Yeah. And there it was, man. Yeah, it was a young black bear, man. And he just like sniffing it. He never even looked right at us.
You know, I can't I
directly in
can't
our,
necessarily say I didn't see a black bear. The reason why is when I was at the very first Pennsylvania Bigfoot camping adventure down with Eric Altman and crew. I was a team leader, we had the team out, and something was moving around, and I caught it on the Seek thermal,
yeah,
and it was standing up when I caught it. So
yeah,
I'm like, oh, look at that, and then it
yeah,
kind of moved a bit, and we're like, and then all of a sudden you could see it ungulate away. I was like, oh, it's a black bear. So
yeah,
I guess I did see a black bear. I just wish I saw it with my own peepers, not
yeah.
through.
Yeah, that one was pretty cool, man. I mean, it was a good distance away from us out there in the field, but or in the meadow or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, and it just kind of sniffed the air, and I knew, I'm like, this bear is obviously aware that we're here in this
Yeah.
camp, and obviously aware of the dog.
Yeah.
But it never really looked directly at us, and it finally just got all the way up, and it just walked off across the meadow and back into the
For the
creek.
most part, black bears really, unless there's food involved,
Hmm.
they don't want nothing to do with you.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
well, I
know,
was kind of wondering if that's why it ended up in the meadow. I didn't know how long it had been there. It could have been there overnight for all I know. But
probably sitting back there going, maybe if he throws something out, I'll wait. Maybe he's going to go to bed and I'll sneak into
yeah,
camp and,
well,
oh, wait a minute. He's got that four-legged thing with a tail. Oh,
yeah,
shit.
yeah. Well, I think that's probably why. But I was worried about that. I was like, well, shit, that bear. And I'm like, of course I'm camping, so I got a cooler of food and all that. Now, normally I would lock that in the vehicle, right? So that helps a little bit. Not that they can't smell it and get in it if they want to, but it helps. And I've never had a problem with bears trying to get into a car or anything like that to get at my cooler. And then, so usually I don't keep, food out, but there's still the smell of the cooking, like on the stove and stuff that I use or whatever. So I was worried that he might come into the camp, but then I thought, well, nah, Sally's here, man, and that bear, I don't think, and it never did. I never did see that bear again.
The way you snore, nothing will come into the camp.
But yeah, true, probably. But yeah, I mean, I was wondering if maybe just the smell of the camp, this food that I'd cooked for breakfast or something, might have brought him into the area, to that point. But I don't know about that. But
I think it's that time, Joe. I got to run.
oh yeah, we do have to finish up. But thank you, Steve.
Oh, you're welcome, brother.
Appreciate you being able to take time out and be able to jump on here with me. That's awesome,
Anytime.
dude. All right, brother. And chat, thank you so very much for joining us. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And yeah, John, when she raced me back to the car, I don't know. I'm gonna get a Sally cam eventually. I have one, but I gotta find the thing to attach it to her. But anyway, guys, thank you so much, and I hope to see you the next time when I get on here. And other than that, man, you know what I always say: don't sweat the petty stuff, and don't pet the sweaty stuff. And I'll add to that: just remember, there's people out there that love you, and we're all gathered right here in this room, or So, good night, folks. See you next time.